What is the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your entire life up until now? Because I'm sure some harder things will pop up at some point. I know for me, and I think I've shared this story with you before, but for me, the hardest thing I've ever had to do was when my husband and I figured out that it was time to move from Puerto Rico to Florida. I had to come first because I was the one who was offered a job and I was the one who had more accessibility to some things. Plus, my sister already lived here, so that was a little added bonus. But at any rate, I was the one who had to come first, which meant that I had to leave my husband and my two young kids behind in Puerto Rico. And at the time, my daughters were 2 and 6, so they were really little. They were tiny babies, and I had never been apart from them more than, well, I was apart from the oldest while I gave birth to the youngest, and that was a couple of nights, and that was it. That was the longest I've ever been apart from either of them. And it just felt like this gut wrenching tearing of my soul every time I thought about leaving them behind, especially since I wasn't sure how long it was going to be before I saw them again. Whenever I tell this story and whenever I'm talking to people about what it took to do that and how hard it was, and really just what a trial that whole experience was, I have people ask me constantly, well, what made you confident enough? Where did you get the confidence to move forward and do this thing that was so hard for you to do? And I know what they mean. They mean, how did you know this was going to work? But the word they tend to use is confidence. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about how to be more confident, but I'm going to warn you because I don't want you to say that I bait and switched you. That's not what I'm intending to do. I'm going to warn you right off the bat at the beginning of the conversation that it wasn't confidence that moved me forward. It was something else. So I am going to share with you today, when you feel that you need to be more confident, when you're asking yourself, how can I be more confident? This is what you really need instead, and this is how to get it.
Hi, welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I'm Marcia Amaro, your self leadership coach. Now, what that means is I'm here to help you rediscover your calling, tap into your greatest potential and strengths, and eliminate those things that keep getting in your way and in the way of your success. So, whatever success looks like to you, whether it is in your career, in your business, in your relationships, or in your life in general, I'm here to help you get out of your own way, remove the obstacles, and elevate all of your life to the next level. If you're ready to see everything that you're capable of and see what your life can look like, I invite you to head on over to marciamara.com and set up a 30-minute clarity and confidence call where we will talk about your mission, your vision, your goals, the things that you're here on this planet to create, what might be getting in the way up until now, and some actionable, amazing ways to get out of your own way, to eliminate all those obstacles and reach the level of success that you've been dreaming of. Are you ready? Are you ready for the next level? Then stick around to this conversation of Sincerely Speaking, and then head on over to marciamara.com and schedule your 30-minute call. Can't wait to meet you in person. Chat soon.
Okay, so I started by asking you, what is the hardest thing you've ever had to do? And maybe right now you are thinking about something that you have coming up, something that you're facing that feels really hard right now. And you're thinking, Mercy, I don't know about the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I know that right now I need an extra level, an extra layer of confidence to push me past this thing that I'm experiencing, to get me to the other side of this thing that I'm going through that feels so heavy and so impossible right now. Well, let me tell you, my friend, when I was experiencing again what up until this moment still feels, well, there's something else that happened that was harder than that, but it still feels like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. At least it was the hardest decision I've ever had to make, right? Because the other thing wasn't my decision, it just happened. But anyway, not to distract from the conversation. When I think about it, it wasn't really confidence that moved me forward. Was I experiencing a certain level of confidence? Maybe in some things. Like I had confidence that I had enough skill to get a job. I had already been offered one actually. I had confidence that we were going to work things out one way or another and that things were going to come together. But it wasn't building more confidence that allowed me to move forward. What really allowed us as a family, my husband and I, and my in-laws and my mom, and even though my kids were little, I tried to infuse this on them, right? And I couldn't give my 2 and my 6-year-old confidence in what was happening, but I could work to try to infuse into their experience this thing that we're going to be talking about today. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I did that in a minute. But what I needed, what I really had to tap into, and what allowed me to move forward and get into this experience of being able to do the thing so that at the end of it, I could feel more confident in our ability as a family to manage hard situations, in my ability as a mom to give my kids what they needed, and even feel more confidence in my relationship with my husband was first tapping into faith, which we are going to look at today as courage, right? I know that they're not exactly the same thing, but in my experience, especially when dealing with difficult circumstances, they go hand in hand, right? Faith and courage are two sides of the same coin, and they both work together to help propel you forward to get started in doing the things that you're not entirely sure you're going to be able to do, that you don't see the end of the beginning, that you don't have all the answers, and that you don't know all the steps, right? There are things that we encounter that are still hard, that we still have to tap into the sense of feeling confident, right? But that are not as trying because we know, right? We know what we need to do. We know what the steps are to take. We know who's going to support us. We know what's going to come next. And we have this anticipation that comes from having experienced something similar before. But when you're facing something that is totally new, that is completely unknown, that you have no clue what's going to happen, and you are just trusting or looking to be able to move forward with enough trust that it propels you forward, right? That you know it's going to happen in the end, then what you really need is to tap into faith and courage. And today we're going to focus specifically on courage. Courage, to me, is not just a something that you need, a force, a strength that is inside of you that you get to elevate and that you get to bring out and draw out of yourself in certain moments of your life. But it is also an acronym. And when we look at the letters for courage, we get the entire recipe for everything that we need in order to draw out that sensation or that feeling of confidence, move forward to start taking the steps in the direction of this unknown, uncertain thing that we're about to face. And it will eventually lead us to having a brand new understanding of confidence in ourselves, in our ability to solve issues, in the people and the resources that we have around us, and in our ability to move forward regardless of what it is that we're facing. Before I go any further, I just want to say this because I think, as cliche as it becomes, it's important for us to be reminded of this, right? We can do hard things. Sorry, I'll say it again. We can do hard things. And again, it's become kind of cliche, but think about it. We are born through a hard experience, through a harsh experience. Coming out from the womb onto the world, it's hard. It requires pressure. It is a change of environment that is traumatic and it's difficult. And everything that we face from that moment on requires a certain level of hard, requires a certain level of difficulty. And anybody who tells you that life is easy or that it gets easier or that it's just a breeze in any way, shape, or form, they're either selling you something or lying to you flat out, because life is hard. But when we can tap into faith and courage, and when we understand the seven elements of courage and how to draw them out, then we can bring into ourselves, draw out of ourselves the strength that we need to get started. And as I've said before in other videos, and as we've talked about before, confidence really comes after the fact. So once you complete the thing, or once you start taking strides towards the thing, and you start seeing how much you overcome, how much you actually do, how you can trust yourself to figure things out, how you can trust yourself to move forward, how you actually have the understanding, the know, and the do, right? So the achievement and the awareness, the knowledge to move forward, then that confidence becomes easier to draw out, and that sensation of confidence can be more accessible to you. And we'll talk more about how to do that near the end, or some resources that I have to help you do that near the end. But let's just dive right in and look at the seven elements of how to draw out courage that actually come from the letters in the word courage. So the first is conviction. Conviction. And conviction is about knowing in your heart, in your soul, in your mind, in every fiber of your being, that this thing you're about to embark on, that this thing you're about to do is the right thing to do. See, for me, what kept me moving forward more than anything else was this deeply rooted conviction, this understanding, this just inner knowing that what we were about to do was what we needed to do in order to change the experience that our family was having, in order to give our daughters the best chance at a better life, in order to open up doors to opportunities, and not just that, but in order to also live out what the Lord had been calling us to do for a while. So there was this conviction that it was a leap of faith that we were being asked to take, and that we had been ignoring for a while, and that the reason why our life was so difficult at the moment was because we had insisted on ignoring that conviction that was being placed in our heart, and that knowing that we had in our heart, right? So it was understanding that, as hard as it felt, that as impossible as it was for me to understand it logically or to explain it to anybody really, and that as much as I knew that this was going to test a lot of our resolve, of our ability to do, of our relationship, of even our faith, even, that I knew it was the right thing to do. And the more I thought about it, the more I took steps towards it, the more I talked it out with my husband and with the close people in my life that I was relying on for counsel during this process, the more I was convicted in my heart, in my soul, in my entire being, that this was the right thing to do. So, very often, the reason why we feel like we need more confidence to do something, or like we can't take the first steps towards something, is because we are not fully convinced. We are not fully enrolled in this thing that we're going to do. There's something that we are trying to do. There's something inside of us that is clashing against this idea that we have, or this notion that we've come up with of this thing that we think we get to do. So until you are 100%, and I very seldom go to the absolutes, right? But until you are filled with conviction in every fiber of your being that this thing you're about to do, that feels so hard, that feels so challenging, that feels so confusing and so scary, is the right thing to do, you're not going to be able to move forward. So if there's any question anywhere in you about whether this thing is the right thing to do or not, my first invitation is sit down with a journal, sit down with a piece of paper or your phone so you can record yourself. Find a quiet space and sit down. And I'm big on timers. So set a timer for 10 minutes. Don't give yourself unlimited time. And for 10 minutes, write down why this thing is the right thing to do, why this thing that you're thinking about doing is the right thing to do. If you can't come up with solid, sincere, valid reasons why this is the right thing to do, then give yourself permission to explore other options and to stop trying to push yourself into something that you know somewhere in your being is not the right thing to do. But if you can start writing and you feel like you can't stop, or you can start recording and you come up with reason after reason after reason after reason, and they're not forced and they're genuine, and you see the value in those reasons, and you know that these reasons are valid, then use those to elevate your conviction and to get to the space where you know that you know that you know that this is the right thing to do. There is a saying that, or it's actually kind of like a little story. There was this trapeze artist, or this tightrope walker is what it was. This tightrope walker, and they would go in this very high tightrope and cross, I don't know, a distance 20 feet or whatever it was, without a net underneath. And it was risky and it was dangerous and it was very entertaining, but obviously dangerous. So one time he was asked by a reporter, how do you actually get the courage to go across this huge thing that you're risking your life? How do you do it? And his answer was fantastic. And I've used it so much, and it has served me so much because his answer was, well, I throw my heart onto the line and my body follows. So there was conviction in his heart that that's what he needed to do, that his passion was there, that his resolve was there, that his heart was all in, and then his body followed. So if you can have enough conviction, that's like throwing your heart over the line, is sending your heart first, knowing that there's something of value at the other end, knowing that this is the right thing to do, knowing that something amazing will emerge at the other side. And then you start taking the steps towards it, but the conviction has to come first, right? The O is ownership. So this is another thing that a lot of us struggle with, especially those of us who have a history of people pleasing. I don't know if anybody else is recovering people pleaser out there, but I know I am. So what we tend to do a lot of the times is we set these goals or we set these expectations for ourselves, or we want to accomplish these things. And when we sit down to really explore why, or to really explore where that idea came from, we realize that it's not even our desire or our goal, right? For the longest time, I thought that I wanted to write a fiction novel. I had the title, I had the main character, I had the idea, and I thought, you know what, I really get to write this fiction novel at some point. Like, this is in my bucket list. Before I die, I get to write this fiction novel. It was a science fiction novel, and I had all these ideas on how I was going to do it. But I couldn't bring myself to sit down and write it. I couldn't bring myself to it. And one day, just thinking through this and thinking about it, I realized that it wasn't my dream, it was my dad's. He was the one who planted in my mind the seed of writing this fiction novel, but it wasn't really even something I wanted to do. It wasn't. I was a poet when I was little. I wrote poetry when I was younger. And right now, I'm in the works of writing a nonfiction book, but there's nothing in me that tells me that I get to write a fiction novel. So ownership is making sure that this thing that you're working towards, that this thing that you think you need more confidence around is really your goal, is really your dream, your desire, something you want to accomplish. And I know that these seem selfish, especially for those of us like, again, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I still struggle with this so much. So it's hard for us to think about, well, if I'm just thinking about what I want, that's just selfish. That's not right. And we're going to talk later about no, it's not. And there's other elements in here that are required that push us to look beyond ourselves, right? But if it doesn't start as something that it's really yours, that you are the one that feels the pull towards it, that you are the one that wants to do it, that you are the one that has been given this desire and this and the talent needed to do it, that you are the one that sees the value in it, then honey, you're going to take one step forward and three steps back no matter what you do. You can have all the confidence in the world. And again, we're going to talk more about that in a minute, but you can have all the confidence in the world, this sensation of I can do anything and I'm so powerful, and you will still probably struggle and self sabotage and procrastinate and not do the thing because it's not your calling. It's not what you're supposed to be focusing on or working on. It's someone else's. So the O is ownership because you get to make sure that this thing that you're working so hard to get going on, that you're working so hard to do, is actually something you are meant to do, that it's yours to do, right? The U is urgency. One of the problems that we have when it comes to getting things done and to achievement and to accomplishing lofty goals and to actually just living a satisfied, fulfilled life is that we misunderstand and misuse time, right? We misunderstand and we misuse time. Very often, and I'm guilty of this too. We hear people say, "Oh, time is going by so quickly. I don't have time for anything." Or time flies when you're having fun, right? Or this dragged on forever. Felt like I was in there for years, right? And we get all these different sensations surrounding time. Well, time is both an imaginary construct and a fixed element, right? We all have 24 hours in a day. We all have 7 days in the week, 52 weeks in the year, 12 months if you want to see it that way, 365 days, right? We all have the same measurements of time and the same amount of those measurements. Yes. But at the same time, it's all a mental construct because when you think about it, what is time anyway? If we didn't have clocks and calendars, what would we do? Yes, the sun comes up and yes, the sun goes down, and that is the least arbitrary of our measures of time. But when we really think about it, we get to determine how we view time and how we use it. Yes. And one of the things that we do wrong is at the beginning of a project, we tend to buy into this notion or this sensation that we have a lot of time, that we have so much time to get it done. But then in each individual day, we convince ourselves that we don't have enough time to get the things done that we want to get done. So, what the U stands for is urgency. And what urgency means is knowing that we get to do this now, not later. And the question is, why is this not a later problem, but a now problem? Why is this not a later, but a sooner? Why is this important and imperative to be done right away without wasted time and without thinking that we have forever to get it done, right? There's this principle in time management. I don't like the term time management, but in working with ourselves in time, that's called the Pareto principle. And I mention it all, no, Parkinson's law. Sorry, not Pareto, Parkinson's law. And I mention this all the time. Pareto principle is another one, but Parkinson's law says that a task will expand to the amount of time allotted to it. So if you have something that you need to do and you tell yourself, I have all the time in the world, you're going to procrastinate and you're going to put it off. And then suddenly you're going to be like 10 years have passed and you haven't done it. If it's something that you have a deadline to and you give yourself a 30-day deadline, chances are that you're going to do the bulk of the work the day before that 30-day deadline. And it's going to take you 30 days to get it done. Not because it really took you 30 days, but because you put it off until a day or two before that 30-day deadline. But if you cut that deadline in half to 15 days, and even more so, if you cut that 15-day deadline to 10 or even 7 days, and you shorten the amount of time that you give yourself to perform the task, you're going to find that most of the time you get it done in that shorter time frame. Now, of course, you have to be reasonable. If you require sending something off for someone else to do, if you are working with other people and you depend on their work, if it's something that requires such physical strain that you can only do so much, right? There are certain limitations to it. But even within those, be real with yourself and be honest with yourself. Do you really need to give yourself a deadline 15 days off, 15 days away, when you might be able to do it in 7 days, right? So urgency is about, okay, this needs to get done now, as soon as possible, quickly. I'm not wasting time. I'm focusing, I'm prioritizing, and I am only dedicating my time and my energy to what's really essential to getting this thing done. So if I really do that, how long will it really take me? How long will it honestly take me? And give yourself a little bit of grace at the beginning when you're playing with this, but don't let yourself off the hook either, right? So say like you have a 30-day deadline and you say, you know what, I'm going to cut it to 8 days because I believe I can do it in 8 days. It's the first time you're trying to do this thing that used to take you 30 days in 8 days. So if you get to day 7 and you know that you're not going to get it done by day 8, don't beat yourself up, throw your arms up and go, ah, well, I'm never going to get this done. You originally were going to give yourself 30 days, right? So extend your deadline a day or two more, but don't give yourself too much time either, right? Like look at what you still have left to do and be like, okay, honestly, genuinely, working as diligently and as efficiently as I can, I will need at least another 8, 12, 14, 15 hours. So I'm going to give myself 1, 2, 3 days to get this done, but then that's it, right? And give yourself firm deadlines. And then after you have tested, okay, I thought it was going to take me 30. It actually took me 12. So from now on, every time I'm going to do this, I know I can give myself a 12-day deadline. So the next time I'm going to give myself 11. and see if I can push myself a little bit harder at the beginning. Or I'm going to examine what I did, why it took me 12 days, and see if I can spread that energy and that those tasks more efficiently so that I get it done in 10. See what I mean? But make it urgent. Make it a now thing. If you make it a now thing, that is going to propel you forward, right? The next one I'm not going to talk too much about because it's reasons and that's your why. And we talk about your why so much, and everybody out there is like, know your why. Your why will propel you forward. I have some beef with that. I don't 100% agree with that. But unless you know why this is important, right? And that ties a little bit with ownership, but it goes deeper, right? So, why is it that this is essential? What is the end result that you want to see? What is it that you're solving for? That's all part of the reasons. What is the issue that you're trying to solve? Why is it something that is going to actually make your life and the lives of others better, maybe, right? But tap into your why. The A stands for awareness. And in awareness, I mean bring awareness to your resources, take inventory. Be really conscious of everything that you have available to you and everything that you still need. Be aware of yourself, like within yourself. What is your mental state? What is your emotional state? What competencies do you bring? Right? So when we look at resources, remember I always talk about the 4 T's, which are your main resources: your time, your treasures, your talents, and your teams. So look at how much time do you have available? And we already talked about that. And how much time are you going to devote? How are you going to make sure that you're prioritizing? Your treasures is not just money, although money might come in handy and it might help, but any material resources, computers, papers, pens, whatever it is that you need materially to help you move forward, make sure that you take inventory and that you have the resources available. Because here's one thing, when I worked with students, one of the things that I told my students all the time is when you get home from school and you know you have homework, but you're going to do whatever else, take a nap, go to whatever it is that you do before, eat a snack, whatever. Before you do that, make sure that you have a workspace, like a desk where you do your homework. And as soon as you get home, lay out everything that you need to get that homework done. So books, notepads, or notebooks, pens, pencils, computer, everything that you could possibly need, lay it out in the place where you're going to work. Because every time you pass that desk and you see all that laid out, it's going to call on you and it's going to be like, you get to do this. Don't forget you have homework. Don't forget you haven't done this. And it's going to drive you insane. But the other thing it does is when you do sit down to work, you're not going to waste time thinking, oh, wait a minute, I forgot my pencil. Or, oh, wait a minute, I needed this worksheet. Or, oh, wait a minute. You're going to have everything in front of you, right? So think about all the material things you're going to need to get this done and lay them all out, take inventory, put them where you need them, right? Your talents. What competencies do you have? What skills do you have? What is it that you're going to have to tap into? Are you going to have to read on something? Are you going to have to do some research around this, right? And then finally, teams. What people can you tap into? And it might not be specifically directly related to getting the thing done, but it might be to give you the space to get the thing done, right? So it might be calling on your mom to take care of the kids for a little bit. It might be hiring a babysitter. It might be calling on your husband to help you with dinner. It might be calling on your kids to help you with cleaning the house, right? So who can you rely on? So take stock and bring awareness of everything that is at your disposal already to get this thing done, right? The G stands for generosity. So what impact is completing this thing or taking steps towards this thing going to have on others? Remember when I told you in the ownership piece that it's not selfish to think about, is this mine? Is this something that I really want to do? Here's the reason why. Because yes, it's yours and it's something that you're called to do and that you feel led to do. But you also know that we do our best and we move forward faster when what we're doing is going to have a positive impact on other people, whether it's our family, whether it is our coworkers, whether it is whatever the case may be. When we know that what we're doing is going to impact and help others, we take greater strides faster. So what is the impact that this thing is going to have? Once you get this done, who is going to benefit from it and how? How can you use what you're working on or what you will learn from what you're working on to support and help others? How can this become something that is not just a good for you pat on the back that you feel good about, but something that is going to have a ripple effect and help others around you? And then finally, the E is evidence. And evidence is look back in your life or in the lives of others and find all the proof that you can that supports the fact that yes, this can be done and you can do it. So when you're in a space where you feel like you need more confidence, one of the most common experiences we have is that our brain feeds us all the evidence that tells us that we're silly for thinking that we can do this, that this is beyond the scope of what we can do, that we are in over our heads, and that we don't have enough, we are enough, we don't deserve it, we're not worthy. But the E in courage invites us to look for the evidence to the contrary. So, what are all the times that you can think of where you did something that seemed impossible at first and that now is easy? Or that at least you got it done and you can look back and say, hey, I did that, right? What are all the times in which you started something, felt like giving up, but didn't? And because you didn't quit, you made it to the other side. What are all those times in which people came to you and ask for your support, for your wisdom, for your knowledge, because they saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself? Who are all the people around you who have done this or something similar? Maybe you know them personally, maybe you don't. I have many mentors that I've never met. They're just books that I've read, and I consider them mentors, right? So, who are all the people around you that you can look to and say, hey, if they did it, I can do it too. And don't fall into comparing yourself. Just look at them for inspiration, right? Look to them for inspiration. If they did it, they can do it too. If they had whatever it took to get to that other side, then I have it too, right? Now, once you tap into these seven elements: the conviction, the ownership, the urgency, the reasons, the awareness, the generosity, and the evidence, then you're going to see that you have enough courage to take the first step. And after you take the first step, you have even more courage to take the second step because now you have more evidence, more conviction, all of the above, right? And then you can take the next and the next and the next. And the more steps that you take towards this thing, whatever this thing might be, that is pulling you, that is calling to you, that is causing you to think, oh, if only I had more confidence. With each step, you're going to enhance your feeling and your sensation of confidence in moving forward. Now, if you want to accelerate knowing how to develop and bubble up and draw out a feeling and a sensation of confidence, I have just the thing for you. I have a course called Confidence on Demand. If you comment confidence below this video, or if you send me an email at marcy@marcyamaro.com, subject line confidence, that's all I need. I will send you all the details on how to get access to this course that walks you through the step by step by step that you need in order to draw out and experience this feeling of the sensation of confidence whenever you need it. But it starts with understanding that most of the time, what we need is not even more confidence, it's the courage to take the first step and then the next step and then the one after that. Right? So I hope you have found this helpful. If you have, share this with someone you love. Make sure that you subscribe, that you follow so that you don't miss anything. Turn on the notifications. Leave a comment and let me know if this was helpful and what questions you still have. And I will see you next time here on Sincerely Speaking. Have an amazing rest of your week. Bye.